In this video, I want to talk about a couple of questions that were brought to my attention. And the reason I want to talk about these is because there are false doctrines that are being presented and false interpretations of Scripture. And so if these are things that you have come across or been taught, I'd like to clarify them. The first question is regarding Revelation 17:9. The seven heads are seven hills on which the woman sits. Okay, well, one of the things that I heard, when I was first trying to understand Revelation, is that Rome somehow sits on seven hills. Like literally. But the very next verse is going to interpret what this means. The very next verse. The seven heads are seven hills on which the woman sits. They are also seven kings. So it literally just told you what they are. There are seven kings. The seven hills are seven kings. And then it says, 5 have fallen, 1 is, and 1 has not yet come. But when it does, it's going to remain for a little while. So what this person was saying is that some people argue that the use of the word hill was wrongly used in some Bible versions and the correct word should be mountain. Well, yeah, I understand that because God uses mountains or hills in order to represent a power. And so he goes on to say, therefore, they come up with other interpretations of mountain being kingdoms. Well, yes, actually, king or kingdom is used interchangeably in Scripture. So, yeah, it could be kingdom. It still doesn't change the context of what is being said. So the word says the seven hills are seven kings. But we understand that kings are representing kingdoms. So just like in Daniel 2, when Daniel is interpreting the Nebuchadnezzar's vision, and he says to Nebuchadnezzar, you are that first head of gold. We don't literally think that this is about Nebuchadnezzar. We know that that head of gold represents the kingdom of Babylon. So whether the interpretation is king or kingdoms, we know from the rest of the context of Scripture that we're talking about a kingdom. We're not talking about a king. Or that when Scripture is talking about a king, it's talking about that kingdom. It is referring to not only the king, but the kingdom that they represent. The second question is with regard to verse 10. 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, and 1 has not yet come. And when he does come, he must remain for a little while. And he says people tend to recognize that, yes, that indeed John is in the 6th kingdom, and they take that as imperial Rome. But going back to the other 5 kingdoms, in order of the 5th to 1st as follows: Greece, Medo-Persia, Babylon, Assyria, and Egypt. So they want to know my comment. Okay, so what they're talking about is the order of kingdoms. So we go back to Daniel 2. This is why when I teach people the book of Revelation, I always start with Daniel 2. Because Daniel 2 is going to give us the kingdoms in order. And those kingdoms are going to continue throughout the book of Daniel and throughout the book of Revelation. And so in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, he has this dream of a statue and it's got a head of gold and then, then goes down the statue. And finally ends up at the feet that are partly of iron and partly of baked clay. It's a divided kingdom. It's not going, what did Jesus say? Divided kingdom will not stand. You know that Jesus, the rock that is cut out of the mountain, that is cut out of a rock, but not by human hands, and then is thrown to that 5th kingdom that is a divided kingdom, that when he's thrown to that 5th kingdom, that all the kingdoms are coming crashing down, okay? So we understand these kingdoms, and that God is going to continue, that God gave Nebuchadnezzar that vision in order to represent to us these kingdoms and the order of those kingdoms. And it's not going to change. And so Daniel says that the first kingdom is Babylon. And what we need to go in order of is who fell to who. Greece didn't fall to Medo-Persia. Medo-Persia fell to Greece. Medo-Persia didn't fall to Babylon. And Babylon didn't fall to Assyria and Egypt. We need to go in order of what God has established in his Scriptures and in order of basic history. The kingdoms start with Babylon. So now you just count it down. Babylon fell to Medo-Persia. Medo-Persia fell to Greece. Greece fell to pagan Rome. That was the kingdom that was here when Jesus was here. Pagan Rome fell to papal Rome. Papal Rome fell to atheistic communism. Communism fell to the United States. And so what is being talked about here in verse 10 that is going to stay for a little, what must remain for a little while, is the United States. And in Revelation 13, we're told why it remains for a little while, because it's the false prophet, and it is testifying to the Antichrist. So you think about this, the Antichrist has fallen to Napoleon, to atheistic communism. Now communism has fallen to the United States, and so the United States needs to bring that Antichrist back up again. And so it's claiming to be a Christian nation founded on Christian principles and Christian, and it's a lie. What it's doing is testifying to Catholicism and the prostitutes that bore out of her. And then it sets up the image of the beast, which is counterfeit Israel, and it requires everyone to worship that beast, or it brings down judgment from heaven. Gosh, has the United States done that? Have they brought war and judgment on people who will not worship Israel, on people who will not up and leave their land and give it to Israel? Absolutely. In fact, it calls anyone who will not worship Israel terrorists and anti-Semites and self-hating Jews. So why does it remain for a little while? Because it has two functions: to testify to the Antichrist and to require everyone to worship its image. That's its purpose. What is the next kingdom that's going to rise? What will the United States fall to? The Bible tells us. You don't need to go listen to political commentators tell you that the United States is going to fall, because God has already told you that. It's going to stay for a little while, and then it's going to fall to the Antichrist. Well, the Antichrist has grown since it's been a fifth kingdom of papal Rome, of the kingdom that started counterfeit Christianity. Now she has daughters that bore out of her, as is written in Revelation 17:5. Babylon the Great, the mother of all prostitutes. She's got daughters, and they continue in her prostitutions. They're called the reformists. They're called the Protestants. God never told you to reform anything. He said return to him and his word and his truth. But no, these people thought different. We're going to reform the Catholic Church because we like some of the things they do. We like that they, bamboozle everyone into going back to sacrifice, into tithing. Because how else are we going to maintain the royal splendor of this prostitute? We'll impose this tax on people. We'll have mega churches so we can afford our mega mansions that are tax-free. They love their Christmas. They love their Easter and their images of the cross, of pictures of Jesus, of statues of Jesus, of relics and nativities. I mean, not that long ago, they had like the arm of Jude. That's been making its trip, and everyone like bows down to it and prays to it, wants to touch it. That's disgusting. I mean, that would be disgusting to pagans. They'd be like, what's up with why'd they cut Jude's arm off and then put it in this mold or cast or whatever it is? Why are people worshiping that? That's gross on just like a basic level. But on a spiritual level, that idolatry is sickening to God. Counterfeit Sabbaths. What are Saturn Day and Sunday? They are days lifted up to false gods. God doesn't have named days, or you'd see them in the Bible. He has numbered days because they're counted down from the new moon. And God said he was going to remove those days, the appointed times, the Sabbaths. He was going to remove these things. And then in the third temple, you see that they're back. We're the third temple, guys. Now is the time that God is restoring his calendar and restoring truth. And you know what? There's been so much deception for so long that when I talk about these things, it sounds bizarre to you guys because you've ingested falsehood, just like I did. But now we need to come out of it. And that's what God says, come out of Babylon. And in order for you to come out of Babylon, Babylon's got to come out of you. Just like when the Israelites came out of bondage, they came out of Egypt, and they're wandering the wilderness, and God's bringing all of this out of them. He's testing them, and he's teaching them his ways. He was bringing Egypt out of them. We need to bring Babylon out of us in order to truly be brought out of Babylon. So now I don't know what this is going to look like. What I do know is what the Bible tells me and what God has revealed thus far. That counterfeit Christianity began with papal Rome. Pagan Rome was in power at the time that Jesus was here. When John saw this vision, in the vision, he was brought to the time of atheistic communism. He was in the sixth kingdom. So papal Rome had already fallen. So Jesus was here during the time of pagan Rome. He establishes his church. Shortly thereafter, papal Rome rises and takes down pagan Rome, and it establishes counterfeit Christianity. So you have true Christianity established by Christ. Then you have counterfeit Christianity established by the Antichrist. John warned you that the Antichrist was already in the world and many Antichrists have come. Paul warned you there's only one gospel. If you believe in any other gospel but the one we've preached, you have believed in vain. You will not be saved. There is only one gospel that saves. And he talked about those who were bewitching people and everything else. Well, look, why would people be able to do that? Because Christianity is hard. It's not easy. It is not this baloney that you've been fed in the world. People were being killed. They were being martyred. And so when Constantine established counterfeit Christianity, it provided an opportunity, it provided an out, it provided a delusion for people who did not hold to truth and loved their lives here more than they loved their lives that await them. And they didn't want to be martyred. I mean, no one does. There's a reason why these things are so seductive. There's a reason why God's people have turned away. If life was so easy, and the way that, prosperity preachers pitch to us, if life was so easy as a Christian, then God's people, or as an Israelite, God's people would not have turned away. But there are seductions in this world that have caused people to turn because they think there's an easier way. They think there's a way that, something that they can have a little of both. They can have the promises of God and they can also have the seductions of the world. That isn't how it works, guys. God says single-minded. He says decide whether you're going to be hot or cold, because if you're lukewarm, he will spit you out of his mouth. The word says God's people are going to be martyred. Early Christians were martyred. They knew that. When counterfeit Christianity was established, there was another option. There was a gospel that was taught that, that was for the Jews, that was for the Israelites, that's not for Gentiles. You guys are special. What happened to there's no favoritism? So now all of these prostitutions, these false doctrines, these false narratives have been continued in the prostitutes that were out of her, which are all that kingdom. That kingdom is the Antichrist kingdom. Many Antichrists have come. They do the will of their father who is the Antichrist. This is his kingdom. They have an image. They support genocide, the bombing of children, the torture of children, the sodomy of prisoners. I don't care whether it's Hamas. I don't care if you agree with what they're doing. It does not matter. God's people are not permitted to murder, to rape, to sodomize. God's people are not permitted to do these things. This is of the devil. And people who do those things are of the devil. So why are there many antichrists worshiping this image of the Antichrist? It is because they are of the devil. And their desire is to do what the devil wants to do. He was a murderer from the beginning. And there is no truth in him. And he will murder God's people too. And the word so states it in Revelation 13. That image of the Antichrist is going to be the persecuting power that requires all to worship it or receive the mark of the beast or be killed. And that the Antichrist is going to give full support to it. Is that happening or not? Is it or not? And does the false prophet of the United States testify to it and cause all the inhabitants of the earth to worship that image of the beast. Guys, we are here. And I've been telling you that we're here even before God revealed the things I'm saying to you right now. And you know why? Because he revealed enough to me. He let me know what it is he would have me doing. He tested me to make sure that I would be firm and solid in what I'm doing, and I am. And I passed that test, and I continue to pass the tests that he sends on me. And I am telling you that we are here. The Antichrist will rise next year, towards the end of next year. You will see it with your own eyes, but I'm telling you right now that if you don't return to God before that Antichrist rises, the word says in Revelation 9 that you will not return. Now, why is there still time left, once that decision has been made? Because you're working out your covenant. And because God says you would not be cleansed previously, so now you will not be clean again until his wrath against you has subsided. He says that in Ezekiel 24 when talking about Jerusalem as the cooking pot, putting you through the fire and trying to cleanse you, but you wouldn't be clean. This is also a time in which the wise, those who have been picking this up, are going to instruct many. Though for a time they will be killed, or captured, or plundered, or burned, or die by the sword. These things are written in Daniel 11, they're written in Revelation, and you need to understand them. I will not be here. When the Antichrist rises, he will overpower and kill the witnesses. I will be killed at that time. But if you are waiting to see if these things happen, you will not make it. You need to discern them right now. And that is why these things are happening, so that you can look and you can say, my goodness, we are there. So that you can go back to God and you can say, okay, it sounds like this is happening. Please provide me a witness that these things are true, or expose them for being false. If they're false, expose them. If Carrie is false, expose her. I am perfectly okay with you praying that prayer. And in fact, I pray that prayer. If anything I say is false, expose it. Show me. If I am not of you, if I am speaking anything on my own authority, expose me. Show them. You know why I can pray that? You know why I can tell you that? Because I know what I am doing. I know what God has raised me to do. I know the wisdom and understanding he has given me. I know the crushing. I know all of it. And I am not afraid. I am not afraid of being exposed. I am not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of the life that I know I'm going to lose. I am not afraid of anything, because I love God and I love his truth more than anything in this life. And I know that anything that happens to me will not be able to happen to me until God allows it. And in fact, until God sends it. And that this is not about my plans. This is about his plans and how I fit into serving his plans. So if I sound crazy, if I'm rejected for this, if I am persecuted for this, it doesn't matter. Because the only thing that matters in this life is that I serve his plans and his truth and his kingdom. And that at the end of all of this, that I am chosen to be a priest of God in his eternal kingdom. That is the only thing that matters. There's something that I say from time to time, and I'm going to say it to you, that you have to choose between saving face and saving your soul. You will not be able to save both. You must choose between saving face and saving your soul. I choose my soul. Please discern this message with God.